Finally, the last interview is here. But in front of me, the head interviewer ripped up my resume and asked, "Who would hire such a low-level former janitor? Tell me if you know of anyone who would be interested in hiring someone as low-level as you. I'll give them a call here." However, this interviewer is still in the dark. I get it. Then I'll give them a call. What? Them. Are you able to attend the interview? My parents are being called by the interviewer. Who? They are. Max Johnson is my name. I'm a 24-year-old part-time employee who attends night classes at college and works as a janitor during the day. Although I'm not precisely impoverished, my parents separated when I was 20 years old, citing their desire to follow their hobbies free from familial obligations. My dad and I have been alone ever since. Due to their amicable divorce, my parents are still friendly and stay in contact, despite the fact that my dad has taken numerous business trips and continues to travel the world. Despite the fact that we do not live together, I also get along well with my mother. I have been working part-time without a regular job up until this age, since I have always had a strong desire to travel, not only domestically, but internationally. Since my father had a long history of going overseas for work, I have naturally been interested in other nations since I was a little child. I still don't understand a lot of things about the world. I will never be able to fully comprehend it by merely watching TV, reading periodicals, or using the internet. I'd like to visit there myself. I want my own eyes to see it, my own skin to feel it. In light of this, I made use of my extended breaks throughout my high school years to travel to my father's areas and check out a variety of tourist destinations, including some lesser-known ones. I developed an obsession with international travel during that time. I went on business travels abroad with my father immediately after high school. During that time, I also began working remotely. When I got back home, I started working as a janitor and used my free time to travel around the nation. Finding places I haven't gone to is now more difficult than finding places I have. I still work part-time today, and I'm thankful to my parents for providing me with experiences that I wouldn't have had otherwise. One day, when I told my mother, "I think there's no place where I've never been in this country anymore," she suggested, "Well, maybe it's time to try being a full-time worker." It's true that I've traveled all around the world, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say I've conquered the US as well. Most people my age have regular jobs and are working. I've also been thinking about becoming an office worker eventually, so it seemed like good timing. However, with no real work experience and not even being able to fill out a proper resume, I wondered if there was any company that would hire me. While I was thinking about this, my mother introduced me to a certain trading company, and I ended up having an interview. They had already hired me as a remote worker, so the interview was more of a formality for converting me into a regular worker. Although I had been working as a part-time worker, it was my first time setting foot in this company, and I was a bit nervous. It was an interview for a well-respected major corporation that everyone admires, so even if it was just a formality, I felt a sense of tension. I'd been introduced by my mom, so I shouldn't get too complacent. I quietly motivated myself as I walked into the venue. When I was called in and entered the room, 3 interviewers sat across a long table: an elderly man, a middle-aged woman, and a fit woman. "Please, have a seat." "Thank you." I took a seat on a pipe chair, and the 3 of them introduced themselves in order as Brown, Garcia, and Miller. After shaking hands and saying, "Nice to meet you," we began with formal self-introductions. When it was over, the atmosphere changed drastically. "Well, your highest level of education is high school, and you're now working as a part-time worker." "Yeah, that's right." "Mr. Johnson, didn't you go to college?" "After graduating from high school, I went to live with my father overseas, so I didn't pursue further education and instead took part-time jobs." "I see. It says part-time work here too. Was it all remote work then?" "Yes, that's correct. I didn't work outside. I received work orders from your company and completed them from home. I see. It was tense. Brown and Garcia exchanged glances, forcing smiles and sighing. What kind of work did you do remotely? Yes, I mainly did translation work for data written in foreign languages. Translation, huh? Well, your father actually works overseas, and they say translation apps have improved quite a bit now. What? Oh, never mind. I was talking about something else. What did she just say? I don't mean to brag, but I've received high praise for my performance as a part-time worker and have been entrusted with one job after another. But do they think I'd use a translation app? Do they think my father does the translation for me? Am I being misunderstood? 3 years of remote part-time work overseas and 3 years since returning to this country. It's been all remote work, right? Have you ever worked in an office? No, I haven't. I originally worked remotely, so there was no need to come to the office. So, is it that a shut-in has finally decided to enter society? For a moment, I didn't understand what they were saying. Well, that's right. I mean, 6 years of remote part-time work is not much different from being a shut-in. That's right. And that part-time job seems quite suspicious. Translation work can now be done by machines to some extent. Maybe you only worked a few hours a week. Brown and Garcia ridiculed me, making fun of me together. Besides, he also has a job as a janitor. In this country, that's quite a low-level job, isn't it? Indeed, it's the perfect job for a shut-in. A decent person wouldn't do such work. They pointed at my resume, laughed, looked at my face, and smirked at each other. Ah, well, it's true that I've only done remote work other than being a janitor. But I have extensive experience living abroad, and I'm confident in my language skills. I handle all the translation work myself. Speaking of experience living abroad, you're just a shut-in. Even if you're confident in your language skills, well, there are students around who have studied abroad and speak fluently. That alone isn't enough. Their condescending attitude was getting to me, and my head was starting to hurt. The other pit, Miller, seemed to be focused on taking notes and didn't stop them or react in any way. What's going on? Wasn't this supposed to be a formality? I was desperately trying to endure my anger. Someone, please tell me if they'd hire someone like this? Acting all high and mighty just because your parent had a little overseas assignment. Well, I'd love to see your parent. You're absolutely right. Do you even know the competition ratio for our company's entrance exam? There's no way they'd reserve a spot for a bottom-tier candidate like you. Brown said this as he playfully shook my resume. Garcia agreed, tearing it up with enthusiasm. As I witnessed this, something inside me snapped. You want to see my parents? Yeah, I bet you're curious. I mean, how can you even submit such a blank resume? No qualifications, no educational background. Do you take pride in your language skills? Well, that's up for debate too. I'd really like to know what kind of education you've had. Well, it's clear that having a single parent is a disadvantage. No matter how much overseas experience you have, you're still nothing more than a bottom feeder. Unable to endure their conversation any longer, I said, Excuse me, may I say something? What? Can I help you with something? Are you leaving? No way, we haven't finished the interview yet. Facing the two mocking individuals once again, I took a deep breath before speaking. You mentioned wanting to see my parents. Well, my mother actually works at this company. Can I call her here now? Well, technically, it should be the father, right? But either is fine if it allows us to see their face. We grant permission. Please, go ahead. Thank you. I took out my smartphone from my bag and called my mother. Meanwhile, Brown and Garcia continued to smirk, making me feel disgusted. My mother picked up after 2 rings, and I put the call on speaker. Mom, sorry for bothering you, but could you come to the meeting room where I'm having an interview? Is something wrong? I'll be right there. Just wait a moment." As soon as they heard my mother's voice, Brown and Garcia frowned. "Wait, did you just hear that voice? No way, right?" Ignoring the bewildered pair, Miller calmly got up and began preparing tea. A few minutes later, as the meeting room door opened and a woman appeared, Brown and Garcia hastily stood up with surprised faces. "President? Excuse me for asking, but what are you doing here?" "Hey, good job, everyone. How did the interview go?" "It went smoothly." "I see. Miller, please report." "Yes." Miller, who hadn't uttered a word until now, provided a brief report on the interview. "I see. So that's why I was called in." "Max, I'm sorry for being late." "No, it's fine." As the two of us engaged in conversation, Brown and Garcia, who were comparing us, seemed to grow paler and paler. "Nice to meet you. I'm the mother of the bottom-tier guy, Ava Taylor, who you two were just talking about." Smiling at the two, my mother, in fact, is the president of this company. "You wanted to see my face, didn't you? But you two already saw it in yesterday's web conference, didn't you? Is it not enough yet?" "Do you what? No way." Facing the two, who were gaping like fish out of water, my mother delivered the final blow. "I encouraged him to take up remote work so he could freely travel overseas because I was delighted that he developed an interest in the world after graduating from high school. When my mother found out that I was going to follow my father, she was delighted. She immediately arranged remote work for me, saying, 'With remote work, you can do your job from anywhere in the world, so you can enjoy traveling to your heart's content. Go explore the world and broaden your horizons as much as you want.' The reason I returned to this country was that my father asked me to support my mother since he was staying in China. The reason I took up the job of a janitor was that I was surprised and became interested in the cleanliness of Japanese offices when I traveled, which was different from overseas. I wanted to know how they managed to keep the offices so clean, and it also offered relatively flexible hours, which worked out well for me. Also, it seems like you doubt my son's language abilities, but his father is Chinese. My son is trilingual, proficient in English, Chinese, and Japanese." "Trilingual?" "My son does most of the translation work for the company's reports coming from overseas branches. The report from the Chinese branch that you saw during yesterday's meeting, it was translated by my son." "Are you suggesting that he used a translation app for that? Are you mocking my decision to recommend him?" We didn't mean to." Under my mother's intimidating presence, the two of them had completely lost their words. When my mother's anger subsided a bit, Brown and Garcia, for some reason, started directing their anger toward Miller. "You, did you know?" "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb. You knew this guy is the president's son, didn't you? It's hard to believe that you, the president's secretary, didn't know about the boss's son." "Yes, of course, I knew him. However, I was instructed not to interfere with the president's affairs." "What did you say?" Such a conversation only further fueled my mother's anger. "At first, my intention was to make it just a formality and let you conduct a superficial interview." "Then why?" "But then I noticed something strange. When you two conducted the interviews, the number of candidates being hired was extremely low. When I had Miller bring the resumes from that time, I found several highly talented individuals who had been rejected. It seemed very suspicious." "Well, it's because." "That's why. I'm sorry. But I had Miller join as the recorder, partly for monitoring purposes. Miller also has a voice recorder hidden on her, so I'm looking forward to listening to it later. President, that was a rather harsh situation, so please be careful when you listen to it." "Thank you." Wait, President. This is a... What? Is there any problem?" Seeing the pale faces of the two when she received the voice recorder from Miller, my mother smiled. "In any case, I'll take this matter seriously. We'll discuss your punishment later. Prepare for it. Miller, may I ask you to see off my son? Of course. Max, I'm sorry for not informing you and using you like this. Well, if that's the case, you can't help it. Thanks for coming. Oh, you don't need to thank me. I watched my mother leave with a kind smile, and then, guided by Miller, I headed to the office entrance. When I left the room, the last image I saw of Brown and Garcia was them kneeling there in a state of shock. 1 month later, I went through another interview, which was also a formality, and I passed successfully. I started my life as a company employee for the first time. My mother was amazed, but I wanted to understand the company from the inside, so I chose to start as a janitor. Balancing work and evening classes was challenging, but I found it enjoyable, with plenty of new things to learn. When I asked my mother why she had encouraged me to become a regular employee, she said with a childlike, innocent smile, "I've always wanted you to be my successor. I thought that if I didn't act now, you might set off somewhere again soon, 'cause you love traveling. I felt it was now or never." After that interview, Brown and Garcia were both dismissed from their positions due to disciplinary action. It turned out that the two of them had conspired together to reject overly talented candidates, those with single parents or undesirable educational backgrounds, and students who posed a threat to their positions in the company. They used abusive language during interviews and even engaged in coercive interviews, which is quite rare nowadays. Furthermore, as investigations continued, it was revealed that the two of them were involved in an extramarital affair and had also embezzled a small amount of money. Video evidence from surveillance cameras confirmed their actions, leaving them with no room for denial. My mother expressed her regret, saying, "As the president, it's shameful that I didn't notice these wrongdoings earlier. From now on, I'll pay closer attention to each and every employee." A year had passed since I became a regular employee. By this time, my business trips, under the guise of inspections, had increased. My company had branches throughout the U.S. and overseas, which allowed me to travel the world once again. The perspective of the world during business trips was entirely different from that of leisure travel, and I found it exciting and fascinating. I never expected that I would continue traveling the world even after starting my career, so I am truly grateful to my mother. My father even said, "If you ever come to China, let's have a meal together," and I'm looking forward to that as well. While conducting inspections, in parallel, I continued my translation work as before. Additionally, I started providing monthly language training sessions within the company and was entrusted with the role of instructor. Occasionally, I still took on cleaning duties, and since graduating from night school, I had seriously begun studying business management. This made my days even busier and more hectic, but I found them fulfilling and satisfying. Several years later, I was promoted to vice president of the company. I had risen to the level of my mother's equal. Of course, I was still far from being a seasoned business leader, and I felt that catching up with my mother was an impossible task. However, my mother smiled at the people involved and said, "Starting next year, I plan to entrust the position of president to my son." I found myself filled with trepidation every day. "Mom, becoming the president is impossible for me. I still have a lot to learn, and I don't have the trust of the employees. It's too much of a burden." I burst into the president's office, and my mother responded, feigning innocence. "Oh, is that so? I think it's really a good thing. You gain experience in everything when you're young. Trust from the employees isn't something that increases in a day. You earn it little by little. But now isn't the time for that. You'll build it up through your work as the president." But everyone feels uncertain. At first, I did too. But a company isn't something you run alone. When you become president, there will be times when you're unsure for a while. In those times, consult with those around you. Rely on them. Even if the results seem wrong, believe in yourself and the people around you. If you do that, you'll naturally become a good president without even realizing it. Mom, I'm looking forward to seeing a splendid president in you, Max said. Inspired by my mother's words, I reflected on my tumultuous life so far and managed to motivate myself. When I thought about becoming the president, I realized how narrow my perspective had been due to the pressure. All right, I'll do my best in my own way. Yes, I'm rooting for you. It seems that from the next season, Miller will become my exclusive secretary, which is reassuring. I'll support you with all my might, so please don't worry, Miller said. Hearing that, I felt a bit relieved. Although I kept it a secret from my mother, after passing on the role of president to me, my mother plans to go to China. It seems my father has bought an apartment in Shanghai and invited her to live there with him. My mother, perhaps out of embarrassment, said, I thought, why not go along with it? But when I saw her happy expression, I couldn't help but nod eagerly. After retiring as president, my mother will take on the title of chairman, but she said, I want to see the world and experience it like my son does. I plan to engrave in my memory the world that both of you found so captivating. So even if some troubles happen, please don't call me back too often. And she laughed. It seems she envied me as she watched me traveling around the world, reporting happily with souvenirs and photos, and now wishes to embark on a world tour herself. Someday, looking forward to my mother's stories from her travels, I decided to send her off. President, about tomorrow's schedule. Yeah, sure. Also, could you please review these documents? Oh, understood. Since becoming the president, I have been working tirelessly every day. However, recently, I have been feeling a certain change within myself. President, is something bothering you? Oh no, it's nothing. Just get back to work. Understood. As Miller returned to the secretary's office, I sighed. For quite some time now, my gaze had been involuntarily following Miller. Initially, she had been a reliable support to me when I first became the president. That hadn't changed. However, a different feeling had started to grow inside me. I wasn't sure how Miller felt about it, but I believe she didn't dislike me, or at least I hope so. It was a professional relationship, and I hadn't conveyed my feelings. But lately, I had been feeling frustrated about it. One day, my mother suddenly returned and visited the company. Max, long time no see. Mom, what brings you here all of a sudden? Well, your father said he's on a business trip to the U.S., so I decided to come along. I see. So Dad isn't here today? Yes, he is. How about the three of us have a meal together? Sure. As I engaged in a lively conversation with my enthusiastic mother, Miller, who had prepared tea, entered from behind. Please have a seat here. Oh, Miller. Thank you. Not at all. There are no urgent matters for now, President, so please take your time. Oh, I see. Thank you. You're welcome. Miller served tea for me and my mother and then smiled kindly before returning to the secretary's office. Observing us, my mother's expression loosened into a sly smile. Hey, is there something going on between you and Miller? When did that happen? Well, it's not really like that. Even if you say that with such a bright red face, it's not very convincing. For some reason, my mother seemed to have noticed. Miller doesn't seem entirely uninterested either. It's fine. Oh, what? She nodded, clapped her hands together, and approached me. It's fine. It's fine. You two look great together. I'd be so happy if you both got together. No, I mean, just let me talk to her for a bit. Mom. My mother headed toward the secretary's office, bringing Miller along. Do you have someone special? What do you think about Max? Huh. What are you? Don't hold back. I think of you as my own daughter. I'd be overjoyed if you two got together. Sorry. My mother is just going off on her own. Despite my immediate apology, Miller also blushed as she looked at me. Though she could refuse, she instead said, Give me some time. Understood, I replied. Max, do your best. It's really enough already, so please stop. I sighed in frustration at my mother's interference, but my heart raced because Miller didn't refuse. Perhaps there's hope for me too. Thinking that, I became even more aware of it and felt flustered. I wonder if Miller felt something similar. The awkward atmosphere was frustrating, and a few days later, I confessed, and we started dating. Of course, we were in a romantic relationship, but also president and exclusive secretary at the same time. Mixing business with personal matters wouldn't be good, so we kept work and personal life separate in our minds. Not much progress had been made. However, we went on dates and traveled together on our days off. It turned out that Miller had experienced traveling abroad, and travel became a shared hobby. We looked forward to the time we spent together, thinking about where to go next on our days off more than anything else. And I wanted to be with her all the time. Miller. President, what's wrong? Well, today is your birthday, isn't it? Yes, that's right. One day, after work, I nervously called her and took out a small box. What is this? Seeing the box, she seemed to understand what was about to be said. She swallowed hard, tears welling up in her eyes as she looked at me. Though my heart felt like it might burst from nervousness, I took a deep breath and spoke. I'm still immature, but I promise to make you happy. Would you marry me? As I presented the large diamond ring inside, she gently enveloped it with both her hands and said, Yes, of course. I felt relieved and started to cry. Why are you crying, Max? Because I'm just so relieved. Thank you. And so, we officially became engaged. We decided to get married within the year and hold our wedding ceremony overseas next year. With our busy jobs and now as an engaged couple, we couldn't travel around the world like we used to. But we found even greater happiness and fulfillment. I gazed at a photo of my parents, smiling on a postcard they sent. Although they hadn't remarried, seeing them enjoy their retirement together freely and lovingly made me think, I want to become a couple like them. With that goal in mind, we will continue to work hard together. I'm 27-year-old office worker John. When I graduated from college, I made the decision to start working for a printing company. The only reason I joined the company was because they were the first to give me a job, not because I had any aspirations or ambitions for the future. Using the camera I've always liked, I launched a side business while working throughout the day at the printing company. I can now make some money from the photography I first learned on my own. I frequently struggle with deciding whether to continue working at the steady job or go it alone as a photographer. I really am at a loss these days. The majority of my employment at the printing company consists of odd jobs. My employer has chastised me for appearing unmotivated, and it happens a lot. I've always stood out in gatherings, so I knew I stood out at work. This can be explained by the fact that I've always been something of a mistrustful person. Of course, that wasn't who I was from the beginning. My mistrust of people stems from trauma experienced as a child. In our community, my dad had established his own company and was in charge of a reputable trading organization. He was brave, kind, and intelligent. My dad served as a role model for me. I always imagined that as I grew up, I would grow up to be like my dad and expand his business. In that regard, I may have been precocious. However, this dream vanished in an instant. My father died unexpectedly. He passed out at work, and he was unconscious when he arrived at the hospital. He died without ever coming to consciousness. At the age of 10, I believe. Following my dad's passing, my mother turned into a zombie. She could not deal with reality and was continuously crying. I believe I gritted my teeth while standing next to her. Then, my uncle took over my dad's company by taking advantage of my mom's sorrow. It appeared to occur in an instant. It's likely that he has been waiting for an opportunity to take over the company all along. By using kind words to my mother, he was able to gain favor and effectively seize control of the business. My mom and I felt like the ladder had been ripped out from under us after that. Yes, my father had left an inheritance. My mother must have gotten a sizable payout from the insurance. My mother had given up on the takeover of the business from the beginning. "Your father left us with more than just the company," she stated to me. However, I was unable to accept it, and as a result, I developed a strong mistrust of others and was shunned in both elementary and middle school. During my time in high school, I believe I did a respectable job of getting by and, to some extent, fitting in. However, I believe that I was genuinely an outcast in my middle school class during my adolescent years. I don't think my classmates were bullying me or anything. They just didn't know how to handle me. My middle school peers saw me like a heretic, looking at me and my mistrust of humanity. That wasn't how things started out. Everyone seemed to want to get along, just like other middle school students. Only I was unable to accept it. I persisted in erecting barriers in between myself and my peers. They had to have thought I was letting them down. I wasn't going to try to fit in with the class. They appear to have made the decision to delete my existence after realizing this. I started to lose the attention of the entire class. This must have been spotted by the teacher, who must have chosen to ignore it. I mistrusted people, but I still wanted friends. I was confused and unsure of how to handle myself. I was irritated with my awkward self. There was a girl in this class who, like myself, was out of the ordinary. Miranda White was her name. In the classroom, Miranda was also handled like an inanimate object. It's not like she was a shy person. She had a strong sense of self and would voice her differences in words if they were different. Her straight stance was what initially drew my attention. It was lovely and organic rather than forced. I believe she had a strong core. Her complexion was a creamy white, and her long, thick lashes concealed her downcast light brown eyes. Her face was proportionate, yet it was devoid of joy. I enjoyed looking over her slightly depressing profile. Compared to the other students in the class, she exuded maturity. Miranda's everyday existence among her peers was one that set her circumstances apart from mine by a small amount. There was nobody reflecting in her eyes. I genuinely respected her for her pride, even if she avoided interacting with others. I believe that I was putting onto her my idealized version of myself. I never questioned her about why she continued to act in this way. Miranda and I may not have spoken to each other very often, if at all, but I will always remember her. Since our high schools are different, my memory of Miranda is still that of a middle schooler. She is still very much in my memory. Gradually, my photography started to be acknowledged. Then I got a really significant job. The photographer I was working as an apprentice to made the proposition. It was my responsibility to accompany someone on a spiritual journey and take pictures of the experience as it was being conducted in the past. When I first heard the term spiritual journey, I was unsure of its meaning. I had an ill-defined vision of a mysterious figure. Since I had no choice but to accept the offer from the person I was apprenticing under, I did as I was told. In the library, I sought up spiritual journey right away. It combined aspects of Buddhism with old Japanese mountain worship. Taoism appears to include elements as well, going into seclusion into the mountains, going through rigorous training, and becoming enlightened. It is a distinct faith and religion of Japan. I find myself drawing parallels between the practitioner's appearance and mythical figures. For me to capture the training in the rough mountains would also need a significant amount of physical strength. I got thrilled about the spiritual practice as I did more investigation. I'm really curious, so I use my camera to document a world I don't yet know about. I couldn't help but be excited about it. I sent a vacation request to my employer, a printing company. I didn't face any backlash for taking a lengthy vacation because the company provided excellent employee perks. I so found myself spending time with various mountain practitioners in the mountains, the object of faith. To my relief, They were all purely nice people, not at all like the scary people I had imagined them to be. I instructed them to act as though I wasn't there so I could capture them in their natural states, and they told me about the taboos throughout their training. That seemed like a more natural manner for me to take pictures of them. It seems that the phrase mountain hermit refers to someone who trains by lying down in the mountains. The long-standing practice of nature worship in Japan has had a significant influence on it. Some of them move at such an incredible pace through places where there are no roads, giving me the impression that I have come upon a real mythical monster. Some even have wives and kids, which is surprising. When I learned that they continue to live regular lives while training on different spiritual mountains across Japan, I was genuinely shocked. They leave the city's bustle behind, enter the spiritual highlands, do homage to the natural world, and lie down there. After taking in the mountain's spiritual essence, they head back to the city. A few others mentioned how leading a life that is so different from their regular routine enables them to face their own issues. I noticed that I was getting more invested in this work than I had anticipated. At first, I was merely interested in taking cool pictures, but after hearing different accounts, I made the decision to document them accurately. They were faster and more energetic than any people I had ever seen in the city as they raced over the mountains. I clutched tenaciously and snapped furiously at my camera. The time spent filming appeared to go by quickly. When it was all over, I was in disbelief. All that was left was the knowledge that my small-mindedness had limited my perspective and abilities. It's okay, I feel like I should tell my former self, who had walled himself off in a mistrustful shell. Step right out. From the bottom of my heart, I felt that way. It seemed like everything had changed during the days I spent with the mountain hermits, and I believe that was a turning point in my life. I began intentionally performing the things I had been avoiding as evidence. I started to say yes to requests to go out drinking with coworkers I never went out with or to gatherings my employer threw. At work, I started to speak up more and was able to discuss things with my coworkers. The weight of the constraints I had put on myself astounded me. As I opened my heart, I was even startled to feel as though I could see farther out. And that's me, prepared to take on a fresh task right now. Normally, I would toss it in the garbage, but this time, it was an invitation to a reunion of middle school classmates. I haven't been able to attend the 2 reunions that have occurred thus far. I didn't even say anything. I must have been an eyesore to my classmates in middle school. Though I doubt anyone would want to see me, I plucked up the guts to record my attendance this time. My heart is full with expectation that by going to the reunion I've always avoided, I'll get to explore a whole new universe. There's also a glimmer of hope. I want to see Miranda White again, the girl I admired so much in the past. Up until the reunion day, I was filled with excitement and a little sense of expectancy. When I announced my name at the reception on the day of the reunion, the girl in charge of registration gave me a startled look twice. Clearly, she didn't think I would be there. She was probably one of the girls that looked up to Samantha Smith, our class's queen bee. Our middle school class was clearly divided into roles. Samantha Smith was at the top. She was attractive, with a slightly aged face, but I couldn't handle her forceful demeanor. Samantha was incredible because she knew how beautiful she was and knew how to use it to her advantage. With it, she ran the entire class. It sickens me to think about how she took pleasure in manipulating her peers. Samantha is likely to be at the location as well. She's also been a negative experience for me. When we passed each other at the classroom door, our shoulders most likely touched slightly because she was in a terrible mood. It wasn't intentional, of course. She fussed over it a much. Every girl in the class took Samantha's side. They seemed to be competing to see who could help her out first. They feared that if they moved too slowly, Samantha might turn her attention toward them. Samantha frightened everyone. Ultimately, the girls got me out of the classroom and made me spend the rest of the day in the nurse's office. Looking back on it today, it's still a bad recollection. Although I don't feel like meeting that individual right now, I'll just make the same mistake again if I flee now. I inhaled deeply before going inside the location. Nearly everybody had assembled at the reunion site, which was set up as a standing cocktail party. I recognized a couple people at a glance that I just dimly recognized. Unconsciously, I searched for Miranda White's figure. This is probably not the kind of setting where she would reveal her face. Miranda was nowhere to be found at the location, as I had anticipated. As I was looking around the venue, a voice said to me, I can't believe it. You really showed up." It was my classmate, Phil Johnson. He was one of the ones who had led the charge in ignoring me since he was annoyed with me. Is it possible that when Phil gets older, he will start talking to people? I said in an average voice, "Phil, you still have the look from our middle school days." I was not going to fall for Phil's petty bait. Phil kept bugging me, obviously not happy with my demeanor. "You've developed the ability to respond in such a lifeless manner while steaming maturity. At work, though, you're presumably still an outsider, right? You know, people who are similar to you are considered social misfits." Is he a tad tipsy? Phil had a crimson face. As Phil had said, "That's true. I'm kind of an outsider," I agreed. It wasn't false. Why is it the case? Making an effort to behave like an adult. It seemed that my casual dismissal of his sarcasm irritated him. Phil's voice became more and more audible. "What's going on?" People started to huddle up around Phil and myself gradually. After all, I've become older. "I take it you have too, Phil. You can't stay in middle school forever," I remarked. My remarks made Phil's face flush. It's likely that he finally recognized how embarrassing his actions were. "John, you realize how much you've changed since turning mature. You were always attractive. Aren't you well liked these days?" Abruptly, the crowd parted, and Samantha Smith emerged through the opening. Nothing had changed from middle school. The positive attitude toward me was the only thing that was different. Both back then and now, nothing had changed. "In my entire life, I have never been popular," I replied with a sour smile. Samantha widened her eyes. They were eyes, attempting to find the truth in my words. Samantha has this probing, scrutinizing look in her eyes that I have always detested. I remembered, disgusted, how Samantha's remarks following these assessments were directly related to my grade in the class. That's something, though. "John, please come over here. There is much for us to catch up on." Right now, I was supposed to be with Samantha, the queen bee. Phil's furious eyes blazed at me. Everyone in the class knew that Phil had affections for Samantha from the beginning. Samantha was the butt of jokes, and I took her away, and I thought Phil must be boiling with wrath. Samantha had been playing with Phil's heart all along, so she knew how he felt. "Oh, and during middle school, you were dating Miranda, correct? I had the pleasure of seeing you during graduation. You'd be better off with damaged goods like Miranda. Samantha doesn't fit you." My eyes automatically went to Phil's suggestive remarks. Overreacting was a mistake. I turned and whistled, and Phil gave me a look. "What did you see, huh? Did you date Miranda?" Samantha looked astonished as she turned to face Phil. Phil struck up a triumphant conversation. My intention was to confess to Miranda on the day of graduation. Miranda was unremarkable even on her graduation day, but long after the ceremony was over, she remained at the window and gazed at the school gate. It was my only opportunity as we were scheduled to attend different high schools. Miranda, that was my name. Miranda turned around gradually. I think she noticed that I was staring at her. A scar the shape of a cord ran straight down her pale skin, from her left eye to her collarbone. I had heard rumors from someone that it was a big accident wound. Phil referred to Miranda as damaged goods because of this scar. You know, after we graduate, I stumbled over my words, finding it difficult to speak. It was hard to express what I had been planning since the previous evening when I looked into her direct eyes. All I wanted to do was acquire her number. I started to get anxious. Then Miranda gave a small smile. Don't be nervous around me, you weirdo, she added with a somewhat amused yet dignified tone. I believe that Miranda's statements to me marked the beginning of our actual conversation. Are we going to separate high schools? Today is the last day. Miranda whispered something deeply emotional, and I had no idea what to respond to her. Her body began to tremble as if the wind were carrying it. She leaped next to me with remarkable quickness and stood in my arms. She extended herself upward, pressing my shoulders with both hands. My cheek was kissed by her warm breath. Something gentle stroked my cheek the next moment. Her hands that had been on my shoulders vanished in a second, along with the sensation. I dodged it as soon as I recognized it was Miranda's lips, embarrassed as hell. What? I sat down on the area by accident, buckling at the knees. Miranda laughed as she watched me. Her face was also a little red. I had intended to make my initial impression. John, you won't forget me now, will you? She told me this, looking triumphant, and then she was gone like the wind from the room. Just like in a dream, I was left on my own. I put a hand to my cheek and noticed that it was a little heated. Miranda and I kept this a secret from one another. At the time, I was unaware that someone had been prying into our privacy. I didn't want someone to tarnish my recollections, even if it seemed inevitable that someone had seen us. I glared at Phil now. Phil took a satisfied look at my altered complexion. Just as he was about to proudly divulge my secret to Miranda, the front door opened and a voice yelled out, "John." Immediately, everyone's gaze was fixed on the entryway. "John, glad to find you." Like before, Miranda ran to me like the wind as soon as she saw me. My heart pounded louder with this unexpected reunion. "I'm grateful, John. I wanted to let you know that's simple." Miranda bowed very low in front of me, ignoring the peers gathered around. "May I ask what you mean?" "What?" Like I did on graduation day, I unintentionally replied. Where had the adult me gone from just now? That's how astonished I felt. Miranda gave a book to me. It was the photo album I made, themed on artistic mountain practices, kind of like a spiritual retreat. An album of pictures that belonged just to the people involved and not in stores yet. Huh. How do you have this? My mind was racing since there were so many things I didn't grasp. Samantha yelled, "This is the photo album taken by Noah, isn't it?" as she peered over Miranda's shoulder at the album. He shoots subjects other than models. I was ignorant of this. A group of girls gathered after Samantha's remarks. They all had a look at Noah's pictures. I became ashamed of myself for being there. I go by Noah while I work as a photographer. Nobody else is aware of this other identity. This is indeed my brother. I had John take these for me. Upon perusing this photo book, I at last comprehended my father and sibling. John was the one who ended the spell that was enclosing me. Miranda held up the photo album like it was something special. H. Wait, Noah is John. A whisper went through the group at Samantha's statements. There's a little explanation behind this. After all, Noah's models are all superstars. This is the superstition that I am connected to. Yes, after I shoot any unknown model, it takes off. Of course, their own diligence plays a role, but having a picture taken by me is now seen as a shortcut to achievement. Are these hermits in the mountains your brothers? Disregarding Samantha's message, I inquired Miranda. With a wise nod, Miranda informed me. The hermits are the half-brothers of Miranda. She claimed that she and her father are not related by blood. The fragile mother of her daughter remarried as a second wife and died soon after. After her mother passed away, Miranda was left grieving at home, while her brothers and father left to live as monastics. After being left alone at home, Miranda progressively hardened her heart. At school, things were the same. She kept herself to herself, not wanting to disappoint other people. She most likely avoided getting injured because she didn't expect anything from anyone. She would have liked to accompany them, but many of the sacred mountains are inaccessible to women. What on earth were they doing, leaving her behind? Miranda was wary of everything. She was constantly against her father and brothers because she didn't think they needed to do anything so significant to leave her feeling so alone. I noticed the candid picture he took with you when my brothers gave me this photo book. John, I recognized you immediately away. Miranda finally comprehended them when she saw the sincere pictures I had taken of her brothers. Thank you for showing me the truth. As she spoke, she met my eyes directly. The scars on her face were visible even with makeup on. Samantha moved her body to be in the way of Miranda and me just as I turned to talk to her. John, please take a photo of me. I'm modeling, you know that. With a charming smile, Samantha continued, as a favor to a classmate. Her attitude of being a queen had disappeared. She works as a model, as far as I know. She had a poor reputation among makeup artists. I don't shoot anything ugly, sorry. My actual feelings were expressed right away, and Samantha's cheeks brightened red. She must never have experienced such public humiliation before. I could hear the girls surrounding us laughing. Right now, the only one I want to photograph in this venue is Miranda in front of me. Raising her hand in a fit of wrath, Samantha appeared to pull back just in time. She didn't seem to want to draw attention to herself anymore. She pivoted and departed from the location. As Phil pursued her, I observed. Miranda grinned and replied, I don't want to be photographed, but show me what you'll shoot first. After all, my mark is still on your cheek, isn't it, John? Miranda muttered something, and I unintentionally stroked my cheek. Just like graduation day, it was starting to get a little hot. I would eventually find myself in a natural situation, sitting quietly on my knees in the middle, surrounded by Miranda's father and siblings. I was encircled by the powerful hermits. They were asking questions about me. Can you bring happiness to our daughter, our sister? The level of intensity had surpassed that of their training sessions. I was speaking from the heart. I'll bring her joy. I begged, please give her to me, with unwavering resolve. As I spoke, appraising voices could be heard. Well stated. I felt relieved that I had apparently been welcomed in some way. But hold on. No, really. Miranda snapped to attention. Everybody in the room turned to stare at her, confused. What was the outcome of this 1-hour conversation? Just give it one more minute. I would like to spend a little more time with this family. Miranda suddenly understood how much her family loved her when she looked around at the males. I want to be my father's daughter and my brother's sister for a little while longer. Is that incorrect? Her eyes were like small dogs as she begged for just a little bit longer. Refusing was out of the question. You're not attainable. With a sardonic smile, I replied, when you're satisfied, come join my family. The next instant, I found myself flying through the air, approaching a marriage proposal, and finding myself lifted high into the air by the men in the low-ceilinged living room. However, as I saw the men's contented tears stream down their faces, I realized that my decision wasn't at all incorrect. And since Miranda's mark is on my cheek, it won't matter how long it takes. How was that to your liking? Supporting our production will be greatly aided by channel subscriptions. Until the next video, see ya. My supervisor at the branch office where I was relocated unfairly harassed me. I even got coffee splashed on me and was held responsible for someone else's error. Then something changed for me. I threw open my arms after completing the evaluation of my most recent document. All right, that's a wrap for today. I saw that half of the staff had already left for the day when I looked around the floor. Time to head home myself, I guess. I got up from my desk after finishing my cold coffee. Kevin is my name. I work at a reputable large corporation's headquarters. I suppose I'm seen as having mid-level tenure at this point. I don't want to brag, but I'm not that intelligent, and I didn't go to a famous university. In addition, I am clumsy and awkward. I've always paid attention to even the tiniest things and worked harder than anyone else because of this. I am now the most successful of my classmates as a result of this. That's not actually how I perceive myself. I simply concentrated on finishing the tasks assigned to me, taking each one on day by day. In my private life, I'm thinking of getting married to my girlfriend. Like me, Emily, my girlfriend, is modest and diligent, although she doesn't stand out much. Maybe it has always felt good to be together because we are so similar. It was everything going well. I thought I could live this happy life indefinitely. Exactly like that. Kevin, can I talk to you for a minute? My employer, Will, called me just as noon was approaching. Yes. What is it? I apologize for the last-minute request, but after speaking with Will, I can't recall how I got home. I couldn't even remember what I had done. The directive to move to a regional branch came as a total surprise. What a sudden transfer order, and at such an odd moment. I may not be aware of it, yet I might have made a mistake. A demotion, to put it another way. I believe I had been putting in a lot of effort, but perhaps I made a big mistake somewhere, one that could have affected the business. I was too scared to check it out. I was scared to confront it and run the risk of losing my job. It's useless to think about it. As I packed my belongings, I reminded myself, let's try our best. My name is Kevin, and I was moved from headquarters. Good to meet you. Max, my new supervisor, gave me a sly glance on my first day. So you're the guy, Kevin. Huh. Max's unfriendly manner made me unconsciously cringe. I was led to my desk by a youthful-looking female employee who said, Kevin, please use this desk over here. I scanned the floor gently. Except for Max, all the others appeared to be good-hearted workers. That only served to highlight Max's eerie presence. I have to deal with this guy as my boss now. Just the thought made my stomach churn. Hey, Kevin. Max began calling me over for every little thing, constantly complaining and grumbling. Max started yelling about problems that were unrelated to me, leading one of the colleagues, fed up, to intervene and clarify. That's not Kevin's fault. He wasn't responsible for those documents. Then Max turned to me with a contemptuous look and remarked, Oh, quite the ladies' man, aren't you? Already got the women defending you. It was at that moment I truly felt anger boiling within me. Don't worry about it, Kevin. Will is just envious because you're from headquarters, a seasoned employee confided in me. I have known that transfers from headquarters often face this kind of underhanded harassment. I used to regard male jealousy as more contemptible than female jealousy, as if it were someone else's issue. Hey, if you're encountering such hostility, maybe you should consider leaving. I found myself venting during our conversation. That's not an option I'm concerned about. I fear the stress might take a toll on Kevin, Emily voiced, her tone laced with worry. It's all right. But if this continues, leaving might be on the table. So don't fret too much, I reassured Emily, and myself too. In an environment where a superior unjustly targets their staff based on personal biases, the outcome is often predictable. Something is bound to happen if I go. But the thought of running away here is also frustrating. It feels like losing to Max. Just thinking about how he would act if I quit makes my blood boil. If I'm going to quit, I might as well give him a piece of my mind first. I made up my mind, determined not to lose to someone like him. The reason for my transfer remained a mystery. However, I was determined not to succumb to despair or abandon my duties. Then Max challenged me. Hey, can you secure this deal? His probing look was evident. Show us what you're made of, Kevin, Max taunted, his sneer deeply unsettling. Understood. I'll give it my best shot. Regaining my composure, I contacted the client to schedule a business meeting. As I methodically tackled my tasks, I thought I caught a glimpse of Max's displeased expression. But I dismissed the thought and focused on my work. The following day, I arrived at the client's location at the appointed time. However, I was met with an unexpected response at the reception. You've missed your scheduled time, they informed me. That seemed impossible. Despite my insistence, I was told they had another engagement and couldn't meet with me, forcing me to return to the office. Throughout the return journey, I continuously checked my planner. I was certainly on time for the appointment. Why? Could I have misunderstood? No, it's not. I checked, and they checked too. Where did I go wrong? The source of the error remained elusive. Back at the office, bewildered, I had to face the reality that the deal had fallen through. Reporting this was inevitable. Upon my arrival, Max inquired, "You sealed the deal, of course." His tone, dripping with sarcasm, made me pause. But I knew concealing the truth was futile. As I recounted the events, Max's reprimand was disproportionately loud. "Big talk, yet you botched the timing. Such an error is inexcusable for someone not new to this. Do you think you can afford to slack off just because this is a branch office?" Max's harsh scolding halted everyone in the office in their tracks. "No, I didn't get the time wrong," I started to say when, suddenly, he threw the coffee from his cup at me. "Still talking back, huh? You think you can mock me?" Max stood up, looking like he was about to grab me. Just then, an elderly man entered. "Sorry to interrupt," he said. I had no idea at that moment that this man would come to my rescue. As I wiped myself off with a towel, the man quickly brought me another. I listened to his words. "Here's my business card," he said, handing it to Max. Max's attitude changed instantly. He turned pale. The man came over to me and said with a kind smile, "Nice to meet you. I'm Abel. You must be Kevin." I clasped his hand and apologized. "I'm terribly sorry for the inconvenience caused by my tardiness today. It was truly inexcusable. Please don't worry. The change in time was my request." "I thought my staff had informed your boss, Max," he said. As President Abel spoke, he gave Max a sharp look. Max, with a barely audible voice, looked down. "Kevin, I have been aware of your work since you were at the headquarters. I've always thought of you as someone who makes sure to communicate even the smallest changes. A person capable of detailed negotiations. I was looking forward to meeting you when I heard you would be handling this," he said with a warm smile. I felt a bit embarrassed. "Max, what is this about?" It seems Kevin wasn't aware of the time change. Is this some sort of harassment against Kevin, who came from the headquarters to cause inconvenience to the company? What were you thinking? President Abel questioned Max in a calm yet firm tone. "No, I didn't mean to. I just forgot to pass on the message," Max stammered. At Max's words, everyone in the room looked up. "So, you're saying you blamed me for your own communication error?" I asked, barely able to get the words out. Max, still looking down, didn't respond. While everyone was focused on Max, President Abel said, "Kevin, if it's all right with you, I would like to have a word again." His words lightened the tense atmosphere. Later, I was given another chance to present. I was more pleased about getting time from President Abel than the outcome itself. Feeling lighter on my way back to the office, I received a call from President Abel himself, offering me a job. "Yes," I exclaimed without thinking. Catching myself, I quickly looked around. It was a relief, a huge relief. That was all I could think of. I didn't care if my reputation suffered. I could always work hard again, but I didn't want to be the reason the company suffered due to my mistakes. It was truly a relief. I needed to get back to the office quickly and report this. Trying to contain my excitement, I hurried back to the company. "The deal is closed," I announced. Applause broke out. "Congratulations. That's great." I was greeted with congratulatory messages from everyone. Then I realized Max wasn't at his desk. "Where's Max?" Everyone exchanged glances. "He's been demoted, transferred to a remote location," someone informed me. I was surprised. "When you anger President Abel, this is the inevitable outcome," they said. Everyone was talking, chuckling wryly. Ina was appointed as Max's successor. Quiet and unassuming, she always had a knack for subtly supporting everyone. I later found out she couldn't get promoted due to Max's presence. Max's demotion was heavily influenced by President Abel's decision. Realizing the magnitude of President Abel's influence, I shuddered at the thought of what could have happened if I had been wrongly accused of missing the appointment. Being favored by someone as influential as President Abel means you are really exceptional, Kevin, Eno said with a gentle smile. Feeling somewhat embarrassed, I just smiled and shrugged it off. After a day full of events, I collapsed onto my bed, and before I knew it, it was morning. Last night sure was eventful. I muttered involuntarily as I sipped my coffee. As I arrived at the office, I immediately noticed the distinct atmosphere, a stark contrast to what it had been before. When the leadership changes, the atmosphere changes too. Lost in these thoughts, I received a phone call. It was Will, my supervisor from the time I was at the headquarters. "How about coming back here soon?" he asked. It was during a lunch break when I called him back that I first learned the truth. It turned out I wasn't demoted. Instead, I was transferred to gain experience in regional operations, deemed necessary for my future at the company. "You're considered a promising talent for the future," Will said. I thought I had been demoted for messing something up. Feeling deflated and speaking in a drained voice, I heard Will apologize. Sorry, I couldn't really go into details." "My bad," he said, laughing. "When can you return?" he asked. I hesitated for a moment. "Can I have some time, please?" I asked. It wasn't a demotion. That was a huge relief for me. Sure, I had the desire to return to the headquarters. If I went back now, I'd probably get a promotion, but for some reason, I couldn't genuinely feel happy about it. The headquarters, in a way, must always be in a state of perfection. It's that kind of place. Striving for that is something to be proud of. But what about the branch office where I am now? What's the situation there? With someone as incompetent as Max at the helm, I couldn't help but wonder if this branch was in a worse state than others. What was its current state? Driven by an irresistible urge, I hastily emailed a colleague at the headquarters. Sure enough, I skimmed through the list attached to the mail. Our branch was close to the bottom among all branches. I had heard that soon after my transfer, Max had forced out employees who were more competent and likely to advance to protect his own position. Indeed, Max's responsibility for putting his own pride ahead of the company's benefit was significant. But I also thought it problematic that the headquarters had been completely oblivious to such a state of affairs. The next day, I confided everything to Will, the fact that not a single capable employee was left, that the headquarters had been unaware of this until now. As someone who came from the headquarters and was supposed to return, I couldn't leave the branch in this condition. I wanted one more year. Could I not return to the headquarters after setting a clear path forward in that year? I knew I was being presumptuous. If the headquarters had written off this branch, they would tell me to come back immediately. It was a sort of gamble. "Can you give me some time?" "I'll talk to the high-ups," Will said. "Please and thank you." After hanging up, I let out a small sigh. 1 year. That's all. After a year, "You're coming back to the headquarters. That's final," he said. 2 days later, Will called me. "Thank you so much." Right after hanging up, I went straight to Anna. "There's something I need to discuss with you." Anna was incredible from that moment on. She listened earnestly to what I had to say and asked me to work hard together. The next morning, she laid out the current situation of our branch minus 12 employees without sugarcoating anything, and even disclosed that I had postponed my return to the headquarters for a year to try and turn things around. As the discussion progressed, I noticed the sparkle returning to everyone's eyes. Initially, they all had the look of dead fish in their eyes, just coming to the office and leaving at closing time. That was all. That's why our performance never improved, and we were just barely surviving. After the morning assembly, Some started revising documents, others came up with proposals for clients. Some contacted previously rejected clients to secure business deals. Everyone began to take the initiative in whatever they could do. Seeing everyone like this, Anna said nostalgically, "This was how it used to be in the beginning." Everyone lost their motivation after that. "Max came," said Olivia and his colleague, with a bitter expression, and later confided in me that when Olivia was young, she was very beautiful, and Max had been persistently pursuing her. But when Olivia got married, he started harassing her. Yet the strong-willed Olivia decided, "I won't be defeated by someone like him," and stayed out of sheer stubbornness. "There's nothing stronger than a woman who's made up her mind," she said with a smile. "So, you're coming back soon, huh?" About 3 months before the promised day, when I was finally going to return to the headquarters, I told Emily. I thought Emily would understand, but it's natural to want me back sooner if there's a chance. Being told that by Emily was tough for me too. That's why I had been hiding it, feeling guilty. "Isn't there anything left for you to do there?" I was taken aback by the unexpected question. "Why?" "Because of Kev, you can't just abandon them and go to a safe place for yourself, can you?" Emily seemed to see right through me. "I've done everything I could. Now it's up to everyone who's left to keep up the effort," I replied with a weary voice. "Right, you've got 3 months left. Give it your best," she said with a smile. Despite my being so selfish, the fact that Emily could forgive me with a smile made me deeply respect her. This past year, I stayed and worked hard, even at the cost of making Emily feel lonely. Soon, the results of that effort will be revealed. It could go either way. There's no way it'll turn out badly. It can't be worse than before, Emily assured me. Even so, the anticipation made my heart race. If the results of the big show at the head office and the results of staying behind are inconsequential, the higher everyone's expectations are for the branch office and for me, the more scared I am when I can't produce results beyond my expectations. Sometimes, you just have to face things head on, Olivia said over coffee. Reflecting on the phrase, "A determined woman is strong," I feel its truth more deeply than ever. Seeing this, Olivia grins at me, catching my involuntary smile. At exactly noon, the report card was sent out. Everyone present watched in utter silence as if they'd forgotten to breathe. Did we do it? No way. That's amazing. The employees began to exclaim one after another. Looking at the report card handed to us, our branch had achieved the top sales nationwide. Olivia, nicknamed the Iron Lady, had tears in her eyes and quietly said, "We owe all our achievements to you, Kevin. Thank you so much." And everybody applauded. I couldn't find the words, pretending not to notice my vision blurring. Soon after, I returned to the headquarters and was promoted 2 levels. I even checked with Will, wondering if there was some mistake. He just laughed, saying, "You've earned it with your achievements." Every time I met with the higher-ups, they would invariably say, "You've done well," but envy started to show among my peers. It's inevitable when you get promoted. I was confronted by many, but it took quite some time to get used to it. If you work hard, there will always be someone watching over you. You must never give up, my wife Emily says happily. I truly believe that if you earnestly persevere and do what you believe is right, there will eventually come a day when your efforts are rewarded, just like it was for someone like me whose only merit was being serious.